Here's Jeff Paterson, the host of RinkWide Vancouver, our post-game show, our Canucks reporter as well, on what is turning into a newsy week, Jeff.
Yeah, just a hypothetical here, guys. Any idea how many veterans Adam Foote could stuff in the trunk of Prius?
Yeah, he did put a few in the trunk, in the locker at the very least.
Get him out of the equipment, maybe 2 or 3.
The juxtaposition of that comment, Jeff, with Patrick Alvin saying he needs to keep a bunch of veterans. I mean, that's
just hours earlier.
I mean, that to me is the perfect chef's kiss moment.
Are you suggesting that there's still mixed messaging coming out of Rogers Arena, Blake?
Shocker.
I thought it was fascinating. If you listen to Adam Foote in his entirety, and the Hockey Club posted, I think, 6 or 7 minutes of his appearance at the podium last night, the preceding question to the one where he cooks the veterans, he was asked what he liked about the line of Sasson and Karlsson and Höglander. And, of course, they opened the scoring for him. And he said, they follow the pre-scout, they follow instruction. And then there was a question about, what about the veterans and what do you need? And that's when he just basically went off and several times threw the veterans under the bus. So, he had already sort of hinted at what was to come by pointing out the good things that some of the younger players are doing. And yes, I mean, we can't be surprised. It's 11 straight losses. So this thing is getting off the rails in a hurry. I don't know why game 49 was the game that the coach chose to sort of let loose on some of the veterans. I think we've all been waiting for that for a while. He still didn't name names, and fair enough. But it's pretty clear. We say this all the time, guys. It's like the clearest indication of what a coach is thinking about a player on a given night. It's not the box score. It's not the underlying numbers. It's deployment. It's ice time, right? And so when the Canucks are down and they got the goaltender pulled, Drew O'Connor and Nils Höglander are out there as part of the 6-on-5 set. No sign of Brock Besser. No sign of Connor Garland. I think Jake DeBrusk got a later shift in that situation, but again, I think that right there was an indication of what the coach was feeling in the moment. And it turned out that Drew O'Connor was able to get to the front of the net, tip a puck in, make it a 1-goal game. They got close. They were right there, but ultimately they fell short yet again.
I wondered if it was a pride thing, Jeff, that he will now be the trivia question of longest Canucks losing streak ever. Oh, who was the coach of that team? Oh, it was Canadian Olympian and Stanley Cup champion Adam Foote. I'm wondering if just 11 was one too many for him, that, the ignominy of being in the Canucks record book for longest losing streak is what tipped him off.
Yeah, I mean, only he knows. So it's possible, and maybe he was sort of waiting until they reached the Great Divide, and now there's no looking back. It's 8 straight in regulation, but without a doubt, it is 11 that they have left the building, and the other team has been victorious. So you can spin it about winless streaks, whatever. It's 11 straight losses any way you cut it.
Is there some players, some veterans, that you can see it on their faces and in their actions more than others?
Well, when he talked about slamming the bench door, I certainly didn't get a good look. I was there for the first couple of periods and then had to hustle back to the studio for RinkWide. So I didn't pick up in a moment any one particular action of an individual. Brock Besser is so stoic. I don't think of Brock Besser as a guy that is throwing temper tantrums on the bench. Jake DeBrusk generally holds it in, although if you ask him, I mean, this is just eating him up inside. Connor Garland's a usually fiery guy, but even the fire seems to have been tamped down here a little bit, and his ice time was reduced significantly last night, and I think it was warranted. I don't think he's been particularly strong since he got back from his latest injury absence. So, those are the veterans up front. I mean, Evander Kane probably had his most emphatic night in a Vancouver Canuck uniform. So I don't think the coach was pointing at Evander Kane, the breakaway, the goal, big hit on Matthew Schaefer early in the hockey game. That line was going. Some nights maybe he'd be an easy guy to target, but I don't think he would have been included in it based on his usage and his performance last night. So I sort of come back to these 3 vets that have all struggled so mightily for so much of this season, and my hunch is that the answer lies somewhere within that pack.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple process of elimination. It's Besser, Garland, Petey, Höglander, DeBrusk up front, Roenick, Myers, Marcus Paterson on the back end. The rest are either new guys or young guys. So it's got to come from within that 8. I mean, I'd highly doubt it's Roenick. He's having a terrific year. Myers doesn't seem to be the most demonstrative guy. So Marcus Paterson, and then that list of veterans. Although I think you can scratch Höglander because he was pretty good last night. He got his first point of the season. And as you said, Jeff, he was out late.
I wonder if the stoicism of Besser has actually just turned into nothingism of Besser. Like, I wonder if the lack of fire, the lack of a pulse whatsoever from Brock Besser is part of the problem as well.
IDGAF syndrome setting in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's impossible to give him the benefit of the doubt for the production on ice, but in the way that he's handled himself, and he's made himself available here a couple of times recently, and can't say that about all of them. But yeah, I mean, we all hoped that the goal in Columbus was going to, get the pendulum moving in the other direction, and it's only been 2 games, but 2 pretty inauspicious games for Brock Besser. Had a chance on the power play last night, but Ilya Sorokin makes that save in his sleep. So it's not like the goaltender robbed Brock Besser of yet another goal. And obviously nobody was anywhere close to good enough on Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers. So, the bar's so low right now. Were they competitive last night? Was the first period acceptable? Yeah, sure. All those things. But it's 11 in a row, and ultimately they just find another way to lose a hockey game. So, I've spent a lot of time do RinkWide after every single one of these, and you wonder, what is going to be different? What's it going to take to bump this slump? And, there was an opportunity last night. It was sitting there for them. They had a power play in the third period that could have tied the hockey game, and Evander Kane got the puck into the blue paint behind the goaltender, and Matthew Schaefer swooped in to make sure that it didn't cross the goal line. So there were some chances, there were opportunities, but in the end, they let these games get away from them. They fall behind, and there just isn't enough on this roster, in this lineup, and there's not enough fight right now to claw their way back. So, they didn't get bleached in front of the home fans like they did on Saturday, but whether it's a lopsided loss or a 1-goal loss, they all look the same in the standings.
Linus Karlsson looked pretty good on that Max Sasson. Can we cling to some sort of positives there? Sasson and Karlsson?
It was a pretty goal, and it was a good shift.
I think it's one of the prettiest team goals of the season. I'm going to go as far as saying that.
And it's funny because I think last year in Abbotsford, Linus Karlsson just fires that puck, right? He scored from that situation. And, since Christmas, he's felt it. I was a little surprised he didn't score, but that speaks to his awareness and his playmaking. And he's able to bump it back into the middle. And there was Mad Max Sasson, just his second home ice goal. That is so bizarre. He's up to 10 now, double digits for him. But the goal against Buffalo where he zoomed past Bowen Byram. And last night, the only 2 examples of Max Sasson scoring on home ice. And I'm not blaming Max Sasson for the home ice issues, but it does Evander Kane's second home ice goal as well. If a few more guys had scored a few more goals at Rogers Arena this year, maybe the record on home ice wouldn't be as putrid as it is.
Linus Karlsson.
Good for you on finding that silver lining, Blake Price. Some would say toxic media in this market, but take a listen to that positivity. One of the most beautiful team goals of the year.
It was.
He finds the rose amidst the sea of dandelions.
Well, listen to this, guys. Linus Karlsson is 3rd in team scoring. He wins the tie at 22 points with DeBrusk and Besser on points per game. He has a higher points per game now than Jake DeBrusk and Brock Besser. Ergo, he is the 3rd leading scorer on the Vancouver Canucks. How does that strike you?
He also has, I believe Art Ross tiebreaker is goals, but fair enough.
I find myself, guys, in my idle moments trying to figure out, what is the leading scorer going to finish with for the Vancouver Canucks this season?
Oh, my gosh.
Mid-40s, maybe. And remember, last year, they didn't have a forward over 50 points. I think Besser and Garland both finished with 50 on the number. That's going to feel like an incredible season of output based on what we're seeing here. Just the way it's going, I do think we're looking at Paterson's got 29, right? And
I believe he's tracking to 53 with the remaining games possible.
And Wednesday will be the 50th game of the season. And if they start to peel this thing away and it gets tougher for the Canucks to generate even more offense, they scored 3 goals. Like, that must have felt like a bonanza to them. After getting shut out twice and being held to 1 goal in Ottawa and Columbus, they get 3 and they still can't make that matter. They got 3 goals against Ilya Sorokin, who gives up 2.5 on average. Like, they did better than most teams around the National Hockey League against this guy, and it still didn't matter.
Yeah. The other thing I wondered in terms of what spurred on Foot's comments, what you noted to us in your turnover note last night, Jeff, that these rapid-fire goals against, it was a minute 24 last night, but Montreal, it was 20 seconds apart and 38 seconds apart. Ottawa was 15 seconds apart. Edmonton, it was 30. They're right there, and then 30 seconds, 20 seconds, however many seconds.
But does that come back to the Adam Foote comment?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It speaks to mental toughness. It speaks to character. It speaks to awareness. We always hear about the neck shift, the bump up shift, whatever. After a team scores, you can't let that happen. And yet you just list it off. That's a week that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And there's 5 examples of it. So if it happens once or twice, maybe you just kind of sweep those ones under the rug. But when it's happening that often in a week, I think that speaks volumes about the way teams react and process and let them sort of wallow in their own pity and all those types of things. So, yeah, I think absolutely that goes back to Adam Foote's comments.
All right, let's move on to the Kiefer Sherwood trade, our first opportunity to talk to you about it. Jeff, what was your evaluation of the deal?
Well, and I told the story on RinkWide last night. We've all been at this a while, guys. I have seen a lot and done a lot in this business. The first time that I have ever heard of a trade in the underground parkade at Rogers Arena from the man that pulled off the trade. Jay Janauer and I pulled into the underground. They let us park underground for morning skates and practices. So we're in the parkade. And as we're just standing there catching up, Jim Rutherford rolls in. And he's got the big presidential parking spot. So we let Jim pull into his parking spot. And Jay says, I just want to talk to Jim for a sec. So Jim gets out of his car, small man, big car, and steps out. And Jay says, Jim, when are you going to start making some trades? To which Jim Rutherford looks him in the eye and says, Kiefer Sherwood to San Jose for a pair of seconds and a prospect. And we were both like, what? And he's like, yeah, just pulled it off right now. And so, sure enough, the trade was broken in the parkade at Rogers Arena. And that set off an interesting day. Kiefer Sherwood coming out and doing the media wearing Canuck gear against the Canuck backdrop was bizarre. Kiefer Sherwood, I've got all day for. And, I think you've seen the reaction from anybody, teammates, coaches, those in the media, that he's just a good, solid human being, and man, did the Canucks get their money's worth out of him for a year and a half, and to turn him into a couple of seconds. I think all things considered, it's pretty good business. It's abundantly clear that they weren't getting the first, right? Like, we can sit here and bang that drum all day. If a first had been on the table, that trade would have been consummated. And so as reports came out that the Canucks weren't able to get what they wanted, to turn it into a pair of seconds. And as much fun as San Jose has been in Macklin Celebrini, I don't know if Macklin's going to be able to drag them into the playoffs ultimately. I know they're in a divisional spot right now, but if they fall out, then that becomes a relatively high second rounder this year. I think San Jose wants to believe next year they will be a playoff team. And so maybe that 2027 second won't be as high, but all things considered, I think, for me, screaming rebuild was one thing. I said that to you guys a week ago. Needed to see some action. This is the start of that action, that there's no going back now. Like, they have started to strip away, and the roster player, they just had to do that to free up a contract spot. That guy is going straight to Abbotsford, and I don't think we'll ever see him in the National Hockey League. So this is about the draft picks that they got, and under the circumstances, I think they did about as good as you could hope. Now, I've seen people, cite the Tanner Jeannot example, and Tampa gave up 5 draft picks for that guy. Yeah, I think the league recognized how dumb that move was, and there wasn't a manager that was ever going to replicate it. And so Mason Marchment went for a second and a fourth. Kiefer Sherwood, a better player on a better contract. I think that's reflected in the value of that second rounder. So, markets are set, and sure, there are some outliers based on team needs and what some teams are willing to pay. But for the most part, I think this one's slotted in line with about what you would expect. And you have to remember, too, as much as people here have fallen in love with Kiefer Sherwood, you can't overvalue players. He scored 9 goals in October, guys. 9 of his 17 goals came in October. Since then, he's settled into more of the player that he was last year. He's not a 30-goal guy. He's probably not even a 25-goal guy. But he could be a solid push to 20, all the hits, low maintenance, terrific pro. He is all of those things. Good family man. San Jose is getting a terrific player. And I'm glad he's going to a spot that I think he can step in there and bring what he brings and help the Sharks. And maybe it'll be enough to keep them above the playoff bar in the West.
And he'll be rejuvenated, and I think he'll be a little bit more like his October, November self. I think when he gets there, not so much in the production, but just in terms of the energy and the joy, of course.
Let me just ask this by way of follow-up. If they trade him late November, early December, before he gets hurt, before he's in that slump, is it a higher return? Because you put out that memo in late November saying UFAs were available, and then you didn't move a UFA until mid-January.
Again, I think if any team, first team that stepped up with a first rounder, I think it would have been a done deal. And I know Patrick Relvin pointed to the fact that in the here and now, teams aren't trading firsts, and fair enough. I mean, half the league has already moved their first. I mean, that's part of the equation there. But I think teams recognize acquiring teams aren't looking for Kiefer Sherwood to be their leading goal scorer. San Jose's not looking for this guy to come in and run with Macklin Celebrini on a nightly basis. He might play with Macklin Celebrini, but he's going to do it, and he's going to be asked to get in on the forecheck and hound pucks and all that kind of stuff. And, if there are some residuals that just playing with Celebrini, you collect those points. But Kiefer Sherwood was playing first unit power play here. He was a penalty killer here. And it spoke to what wasn't on this roster on so many nights. So, I think he'll find his role there. And if they extend him and that's where he gets his next contract, great. Otherwise, he'll take himself to the open market. And we'll see where where the chips fall ultimately. But for right now, he's a San Jose Shark, although it's unfortunate. Sharks are here next week. And when his scrum broke off and people went to shake his hand, he very quickly pulled his right hand back and did the awkward left-handed handshake. It clearly a hand injury. Yeah. And he said, I don't think I'm going to be playing until after the Olympic break. So there were some people that thought that the Canucks were holding him out, asset management. There was an injury here. He said he had been on the ice earlier yesterday morning, but a hand injury is going to keep him out certainly next week. And it's too bad because you can imagine he would have got the Kiefer Sherwood chant once again, I think, in his return. And he talked about that yesterday and said, I'm a late bloomer. To have a full building chanting my name is absolutely something that I'm going to take with me, and it's going to stick with me for the rest of my life from my time here in Vancouver. And so, guys like that generally don't get that kind of reaction unless they win over a fan base. And he did that, and he said it, and I would echo it. His greatest regret was he didn't get to play playoff hockey as a member of the Vancouver Canucks, because that's ultimately what got the Canucks interested in him, the way that he just punished Quinn Hughes every opportunity he got in those 6 games when he was a member of the Nashville Predators. He converted that into a 2-year deal here, and now look at him go, and he's going to set himself up financially for the rest of his life, really based on the 2 seasons that he performed at the level that he did here with the Vancouver Canucks.
Do you think anything else happens before the Olympics, or do you think the Canucks stand pat until the frenzy afterwards?
Yeah, interesting to see Doug Armstrong in the press box last night. And, of course, general manager of the St. Louis Blues, and it sounds like they're open for business, but also general manager of Team Canada. And it may be as simple as the Blues were in Edmonton the night before. Matthew Schaefer is on that replacement list if they need to go down that road. Bo Horvat didn't play, so there were no other Canadian Olympians in the building. But I wondered, what was the nature of business for Doug Armstrong? I think the Canucks have signaled that they're open for business now, and Quinn Hughes is out the door. Kiefer Sherwood is out the door. There's some momentum. Why wouldn't you continue to strip it away if you can? So I don't think that there is a rush to make it happen, but what do they got? 6 left on the homestand and then 2 out on the road. So there's 8 games to go before the Olympic break in that roster freeze. It won't surprise me whatsoever if there is a little bit more trade activity. And quite frankly, and I don't know what the motivation was, but that Evander Kane last night, I do think could attract some eyeballs if he can be that engaged, if he can be that physical, if he can chip in with a little bit of offense from the net front, all those types of things that have been missing from his game. So maybe he saw, hey, it worked for Kiefer Sherwood. I wonder, ramp things up here, and maybe I'll be the next one out the door. Who knows?
Maybe he was auditioning. Absolutely. Yeah, it's possible.
All right, Jeff. Well, busy week ahead every second night here. So enjoy the Canucks games to the best of your ability. Have good shows Wednesday, Friday, and we'll catch up later in the week.
All right, guys. Thanks.